So where'd the film come from?
The film, the genesis for the idea really came from, I wanted to explore the themes of how we receive information and how we tend to, if we look at big events and catastrophes that happen, we tend to get like the event and then afterwards we piece everything together, and then we get the whole story from that. And I wanted to do that sort of macro concept, but on a micro, affordable level. So looking at the personal lives of people and how they connect. And that was the genesis for the idea. And then as these guys came on board, they brought their own ideas to it. The cast brought their own ideas to it. So it sort of mutated from there and became much more about family and violence and the cycle of violence. Became what it is now.
Right. So can you tell me a bit about how you got involved, Graham, and how you started to interact with the project?
Well, I applied to a casting, which was quite early 2013.
Yeah.
Went along to the audition. At the audition, we had to, one of the things we had to do was act drunk. I'd done a lot of method acting on getting drunk, so I sailed through it, didn't I? Yeah. So that's basically. And then we got on board. We all met up in Guildford. We had just one meeting beforehand, didn't we? Where we had a stunt coordinator there to give some idea of putting the stunts out. Yeah, and then bang in and filmed it, and it was pretty quick.
All right. I'm sorry. Was it straight off a script, actually doing as written, or were you playing around?
No. The script was there. It was a written script, obviously, but it's like any script. It's very difficult to actually do it word for word because the way someone writes isn't necessarily the way that an actor or an individual would speak. So a lot of mine was improvised. I mean, I didn't have that many lines in the film, really, because my chap, he was on the floor most of the time, crashed out in bed. But most of it was... It was sort of improvised around what was needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a lot of improv, and it was a process that I welcomed for the most part. I wanted to involve the actors in the creative process. I hadn't really worked with actors much beforehand. I'd made a short film, so I really wanted to involve them and sort of get used to working with them and sort of bring them on board, bring their ideas on board, because sometimes their ideas will naturally be better than mine. So it makes sense to let them sort of play and have fun with it and see what they can bring to it as well and see if it works.
Okay. And when did the fractured narrative appear?
Very early on in the process. I wanted to make something that stood out, that told this type of story, but did it in a way that people might not have seen before. It's very easy to tell a story that goes beginning, middle, end. It's much harder to tell a story that's fractured and non-linear and jumps around. I'll let people who watch it decide whether we were successful or not. But it was very early in the process I decided. In fact, before I'd even written the script, I'd decided that was how it was going to be. And the script was written the way you see the film.
Okay.
I think you have to have an edge. Within the British independent film industry, there's not a lot of money. This was made on a shoestring. And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of films that just go dunk there and that's it, and they all look the same, so you've got to do something different. And this, whilst we might not be the best actors in the world, it's completely different, and as such we've made an attempt to produce something that goes away from the norm on a shoestring, and I think because of that it's got a good write-up so far. We've had a few duff comments, but in the main, most people are quite happy with it.
Great. Right, one more question from me, and then I'll throw it open. So why shoot it in Guildford?
Well, it's a beautiful place, which helped, but it was a logistical thing mostly. I worked at Guildford College at the time. They were very gracious and very helpful in terms of letting us use the college as a home base, letting us use a lot of locations in the college. I think about 40 to 50% of the stuff is actually set at Guildford College.
Okay.
So they were really gracious with that. They let us use the equipment that they have there. So it just made sense to keep everything in Guildford. One of their rules was if I borrow the equipment, I use the equipment, I have to bring it back. back and leave it at the college overnight, which I did on 17 of the 18 shooting days.
So presumably 18th being the ice rink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't finish shooting the ice rink till 3 o'clock, so there was just no way to get back in the building, so it went home with me that night.
Okay.
They don't know about that. So.
Incidentally, in that scene, the two actors ice skating. Who was the natural ice skater?
Isabel.
It was Isabel, right?
Yeah. Isabel gave a wonderful performance at the audition. She was up against two other people who were also very good. She came in and I said to her, "Can you ice skate?" And she said, "Oh, I'm going ice skating after this." And that was it. We knew then. We liked her as it was, and she had an edge over the others. But as soon as she said, "I can ice skate," and I'm going, that was it. We gave it apart.
Fantastic. Shows she can skate.
Yeah. And he really couldn't. Much to the contrary of what he said. He was, "Oh yeah, I'll be fine. He went out in the ice. He lasted about a minute, and then that was it. He was down.
And you kept making you go back out.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. Throw it open.
A quick thing, Graham, I can't believe that you weren't drunk actually in some of that. You obviously method acting has seeped into your bones, and the acting throughout the film was absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
Especially since the actors were so exposed all the way through. A lot of close-ups,
Yes.
and very much full face, a lot of it, and excellent. I really thought it was great.
I think the nice thing about, I mean, I've made an awful lot of films, many of them real rubbish. I think one of the nicest thing about working on Little Pieces was the fact that Adam just let us get on with it. You know, I mean, I can't speak for some of the other actors, but on ours, we pretty well did first take every time, didn't we?
Yeah, first or second, definitely.
I did actually get knocked out in the film. On the stairs, I was out for about 8 seconds. And that's the actual part that's in the film. So he caught my head, whack, you know. So, yeah.
The other point I was going to make was, in some ways, it was Tarantino-esque in its structure. It reminded me a little bit of Pulp Fiction. My own mother went to see Pulp Fiction, and she was convinced that the projectionist had got the reels in the wrong order. She kind of has a point, but your non-linear narrative was even more complicated, and it made the film a bit like a puzzle for us viewers to decode, which definitely kept me watching all the way through. Very interesting.
I'm a big fan of film. I absolutely love it. I was teaching film when I decided to make Little Pieces, and I honestly believe that you've got to make a type of film that you would like to see. And I love complicated story structures. I love things that I have to sit and watch and break down and think about. So it became quite a natural sort of extension when I decided to give it that edge, to do it that way. I wanted to make something that made people sit there and involve them. It's very easy now with like falling prices of equipment and YouTube to make a gangster film that just trots along. And hits all its specific genre beats, and that's it, and then it's done and it's over. I wanted to involve the audience. There are bits of information that are deliberately withheld, so the audience can put the pieces together themselves. They're also, they're welcome to interpret that. And what's been really wonderful about the reviews and people talking about it that we've had is that lots of people have really brought their sort of own interpretations to the film and taken from it what they've brought to it. And some people have said things about it that I never even would have thought of whilst we were making it, but they've brought that to it. And part of it, I think, is down to the fact that the story structure makes them have to work for it.
Right. Have we got any more questions from the audience? I don't know whether you want a question in round. No, so I'll ask you. Can you tell me a bit about the soundtrack?
The soundtrack. For the soundtrack, I gave Imran the script about 3 months before we started shooting it, and I said, this is the film. He'd already agreed to do the soundtrack. He did the soundtrack for the short film I made before, Little Pieces, and it was amazing. And I was teaching him at the time, and he did the soundtracks for a lot of our students, a lot of the students in his class's films, and they were all really good. So I knew I wanted him on board. I knew he'd do things. He works well within his limitations, and it forces him to think outside the box. I gave him the script. I said, I didn't tell him particular scenes I definitely wanted music for. I'm not a big lover of having score constantly under the film. And he would just send stuff back to me, and I would figure out where to put it based on what he'd sent me. 2 or 3 times he asked me to see the edits of the film so he could match stuff, and I said, no, you're going to have to trust me that I'm putting this in the right place and that I know what I'm doing. And he was a bit on edge with that, but hopefully he agrees that it's turned out well. I think the score is one of the best things about the film. I really do. I love the score. I have it on my iPod, and I listen to it quite a lot.
Great. Well, thank you for your time, gentlemen. One last question for me. If anyone wants to watch this, if we get the video online, how can they watch it?
You can see Little Pieces at littlepieces.vhx.tv. That's our rental and purchase site. It's available to rent or buy in a standard version, which just gets you the film and the trailer. Or there's a deluxe version that includes the film, the trailer, some deleted scenes, a copy of the script, a copy of the soundtrack. And they're priced fairly reasonable, $3 a rent, £6 to buy, or £10 for the deluxe. $10 for the deluxe package. You can also check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/littlepieces film.
Right, Adam Nelson, Graham Cawte. Thank you.
Thank you.